Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of First and Nole.
We have a name.
We do have a name. We want to appreciate. We want to thank people for their suggestions. Curt Weiler, and got a lot of emails and text messages. I had some friends who sent me some ideas, and First and Nole will be the name of this podcast going forward. I'm Ariya Massoudi. That's Curt Weiler, director of creative media, I should say, and our senior writer here at the Osceola. And got some actually big news coming for this podcast, hopefully in about a week, as it takes shape and really establishes itself, much like Mike Norvell's third season as Florida State trying to establish itself in the college football landscape. And Curt, we've been talking about camp for about 4 weeks now. I mean, we've been talking preseason and position battles and what guys have stood out and potential. It's finally time to play football. And the Seminoles and the Dukes of Duquesne, we found out, by the way, is from Pittsburgh.
I knew that.
I did not know that.
I think I looked that up when I knew that's who they'd be playing. I don't think I could have told you that 3 years ago.
Yeah,
but
they will be here in Doak Campbell Stadium. Kickoff on Saturday at 5 p.m. on the ACC network. Curt, how excited are you to finally cover a game here in 2022?
I'm very excited. I mean, this is it has the feel of obviously a big year for Mike Norvell and his long-term here, if there is going to be a long-term here for Mike Norvell. And it definitely, feels like a team that is a major step back towards what you expect a Florida State team to be in terms of talent. The schedule's tough. We're going to get into that actually in a little bit. But you look at this team, it's undeniably the best team, Florida State team on paper, in quite a while. He has, through the transfer portal, through the high school ranks, built this roster back. And I'm excited to see what it looks like. I'm excited to see probably, we all remember last year, I don't have to rehash it, the first season opening win since 2016 for FSU.
Yeah, it's been a minute. And Florida State, I think a lot of people are gun shy about the way the game went last year against Jacksonville State, a team of similar ilk, FCS, that Duquesne is. And so obviously Florida State's going to be trying to make a point and kind of vaporize, so to speak, demons of years past, of seasons past. And Curt, we're recording this on a Monday night here as we are in game week and we approach kickoff. Mike Norvell having his press conference earlier today. We were both there for that. And they released the depth chart. They talk about some different things. Adam Fuller, defensive coordinator, was there. Alex Atkins, offensive coordinator, was able to speak to the media. And Coach JP, the special teams coordinator, also meeting with the media. What stood out to you from our conversations with the coordinators and the head coach?
It's interesting. Mike Norvell kind of didn't shy away from saying that he thinks did he use the word irritable when kind of saying that he just thinks this team is ready to face someone other than themselves? I think he knows that this team is I think, ready. I mean, what's interesting to me, obviously I think he knows how important the season is, but he talked about, the goal will still be what it always has been, the constant improvement. And I don't know, a lot of praise for Jordan Travis has been the case. Obviously, Jordan last Saturday after FSU's mock game was picked to break the rock to end the preseason, and I think it's entirely possible Jordan gets to break the post-game rock a few times this year after wins. He definitely seems poised. I think you picked him as your breakout player, right?
I did. I believe it.
Or wild card. It was the wild card.
Well, he was my wild card, and I think that's
which is
He's truly the epitome of a player that I think it swings the pendulum. And how he plays, I think the team goes, and he seems ready to rock. Like, he seems like he has a chip on his shoulder. And, Curt, I just think he's going to prove what kind of quarterback he can be.
Yeah, we finally talked to him, I think last Tuesday, right after we record our first episode of this podcast. And he talked about how kind of he has the full offense now, and that hasn't always been the case. But, there were times in the past where maybe when Mike Norvell would come to him for input over, what do you want to implement in the game plan, he may have had ideas. And now he's like, I love it all. Whatever you want to throw in there, I'm down to run. And I think that showed up today with Alex Atkins talking about Jordan and how he has really grasped the full offense and really has become a kind of a coach on the field for them. And, they multiple people spoke to just how important that is for if he is indeed ready. And, beyond any growth as a player he may make, I think that would be significant.
It would be. And I think, when the depth chart was released, Curt, there were no questions about who the starting quarterback would be.
There weren't at all offseason.
Right. It's the first time in a couple of years where we've been able to just confidently project who would be the quarterback. And I think for Jordan, it made all the difference, too. Not having someone kind of breathing down his neck. He can be the guy. He can be comfortable being a leader, and what that entails as the face of Florida State's program. But the depth chart, that's something we have kind of teased too. And I think you guys are ready to hear about what Florida State released offensively, defensively, and special teams. And for that, we bring in our good friend and coworker, Pat Burnham here of the Osceola. Pat, I know Curt and I have been talking about it for a second here, but we were tired of practice. We were tired of guys hitting each other. I think the players were tired of it, and we finally got the depth chart. It feels real, as if we are playing a game this Saturday, because it is upon us.
Yeah, and for the first time, we can quit talking around things, right? We have had to talk around injuries during camp that had not been publicly spoken about. But certainly, yes, it does mean the season's here. We get a clear definition or vision of, did we see the right things on the field? But yes, for the most part, I think the depth chart on both sides of the ball played out about the way we had projected as a staff, and sitting down at every practice and watching this thing. I think I'm probably surprised by some of the ors on offense. And of course, this is a staff that uses or quite liberally on its depth charts, and probably a little more conservative with them this year than they have been in the past. But, I think what that indicates to me, particularly on offense, is that you had some guys that made late pushes for reps with the first team. And then on defense, I think the ors are probably in large part different packages, and we can get into a little bit of all that. And then, of course, there were a couple names I did not see on the two deep on defense that surprised me as well. And I'll be interested to get y'all's thoughts to see if you were surprised that they were not on there. But yeah, so about what we thought, though.
I think, Pat, how I want to start this segment off is give me some of the spots on the depth chart that you felt were no-brainers, ones that you nailed and ones that went expected, in your opinion.
Oh, well, I think if you just go down the offensive side of things, of course, no doubt Jordan Travis. We have expected Pittman to nail down one of the three starting wide receiver spots, and of course, he did that. Robert Scott, we said going back early in the camp that short of injury, he and Dylan Gibbons would make up one side of the line, and they do. They're going to make up the left side of the line. Bless Harris, we said early in the camp that it looked like there was a definitive difference between him and Turnentine, so much so that actually Turnentine is now over on at right guard behind Dimitri Emmanuel, and it's Dimitri Emmanuel or Jazz and Turnentine, which tells me that Turnentine made a huge push towards the end of camp, because they did rotate the offensive line a little bit during camp, but they seemed to do a lot of it later on in camp, later rather than sooner, because we had not seen a lot of Turnentine at guard early in camp. So this has been a last week type thing. But then, obviously the thing that looks most different to us is the center position, right? Neither of the two players that we thought would be on the two deep entering the season are on there, both due to injury. Maurice Smith out an extended period, it looks like. We don't know how long yet. And then obviously Caden Lyles lost for the season. So you got Darius Washington and Thomas Schrader there. So those are, the wide receiver positions were wide open, and still, Ontario Wiston and Deuce Spann are notated as co-starters, as are Malik McLean and Johnny Wilson. So, there's still some competition going on there. And as Coach Norvell said, we're past the point in football where it's 11 guys, right, on each side of the ball. So, and then on defense, Fabian Lovett, Robert Cooper, probably inside there. Probably what surprises me the most is I thought Josh Farmer had won the the backup position behind Robert Cooper. And of course, we know Malcolm Ray's a good player, but Josh stood out more to me anyway. And I thought that might be a no-brainer as him being the de facto number 2 there. Nothing shocking. Dennis Briggs, Derek McClendon and Jared Verse, co-starters. That's about what we thought we'd see. Probably a little bit surprised by Kalen DeLoach and DJ Lundy being listed as co-starters. I thought Kalen might run away with that second spot. And of course, we expected, we've all been very impressed with what we've seen of Tatum, Bethune, and of course, thought he would be there all the way. And then of course, the secondary, for the most part, Knowles, Cooper, Dent, Robinson, and Green, we thought those guys would be the guys, and they are. Probably what surprises me the most over there is Shaheem Brown's a second team free safety. Not that we didn't like Shaheem, because we liked him a lot coming out of high school, but probably who you don't see, a guy like Sidney Williams is not on that 2 deep, who had a promising start to his career. And then also, and we've already got some subscriber questions, Travis Jay is not on that 2 deep, and a guy that came in very highly thought of, and I believe this is his 3rd year in the program now, and he's not on the 2 deep. And like I said, but you got 2 true freshmen that are Azaria Thomas and Sam McCall are listed as a backup corner, co-backup corners to Amari and Cooper. So yeah, but for the most part, there were some surprises. But you start looking through it, and you're very impressed with some of depth at some positions, and others you're like, we got to stay healthy. So
yeah, and Pat, I think some of the ones that we all predicted when we watched practice came true, but some of the others really surprised us as well. So, Curt, to you on this one, let's start with the offense. Were there any surprises, in your opinion, that caught your eye when the depth chart was released?
So, not surprised to see Darius Washington at center, because, I mean, like Pat alluded to, we had seen Maurice Smith be a bit banged up, miss a bit of time recently. I'll say for Darius, I know, I mean, people hear centers are missing time, and people hear snap issues that get concerned. Credit's due. Darius hasn't been responsible for a great deal of those snap issues. Darius has looked pretty good snapping the ball on the whole. He hasn't been perfect, but he's definitely, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a huge problem there. And I think, Alex Atkins talked today about how impressed he is with his intelligence and how he should be able to handle, even though he's never played center extensively here, be able to handle all the pre-snap stuff required of the center. I think it also bears mentioning with Maurice. I mean, we'll see what becomes reality. I think he's inclined. Norvell is definitely inclined to say he's going to be back soon. We'll see if that happens, but I think he said something effective. He'll be back very, very soon. Was like, I think more Norvell's words about Maurice Smith today. The interesting thing, I mean, you could say Trey Benson not being one of the starters surprised me, but at the same time, I think all 3 of those guys are going to see the field a lot. I don't really read too much into that and what the depth chart reflects on how reps are going to be distributed. Receivers is interesting. I mean, obviously, if you told me before the preseason that Deuce Spann was going to be one of the co-starters, I would have been pretty surprised. He's been quite impressive this camp, and has definitely earned his spot as a co-starter with Pokey, Ontario Wilson. And I don't know. I mean, it's Marquise and Douglas, a bit of a surprise at that second tight end spot opposite Cam McDonald, but likewise has had a good camp. I think not much of it, like Pat kind of said, not much of it is a surprise from what we've seen. Some of it would be pretty surprising from before preseason, not having seen what we've seen this preseason.
I mean, Pat, I guess back to you on that. What parts of it surprised you the most? And I think, interestingly enough, did you think Trey Benson would be a starter there at running back?
Well, we've in years past, and I know there are some guys that are transfer guys that are listed as the first teamer, Bless Harris, but he's not listed as a first teamer over a guy that started last year. We've seen Mike let the incumbents start the season in the past with these transfers, and that seems to be the case here. Listen, and let's be honest, as excited as we are about Trey being on this football team and what he brings this football team, we have not seen a just a huge difference between he and Trayshawn Ward. And you can make the argument that Trayshawn has not done anything to lose his job. And listen, here's the thing. Some of these jobs are probably we're going to find out a little bit more about how many reps you get coming out of this Duquesne game, right? I mean, we're going to find out who the playmakers are, who plays better, is probably going to get more reps against LSU and moving into Louisville. And then, of course, some of these, you're going to have 4 receiver sets and 5 receiver sets. So you're going to have 5, in those packages that would make a Deuce Spann and Johnny Wilson, obviously, in that personnel package, a starter. But no, I'm not as surprised by the Trayshawn Ward, Trey Benson thing. And, that'll take care of itself as we get into the season. And, listen, Mike is a guy that has used multiple running backs. It's not like the last time we had a great back, it was Cam Akers, right? Cam never came out of the ball game. But, there's not a Cam Akers, as far as we know it to be right now, there's not a Cam Akers on this football team. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's a pretty good football player. Without
a doubt. I like your point of, especially at the running back position, Norvell really does believe in running back by committee. If he's got, in his time at Memphis too, if he's got 2 or 3 guys that he feels comfortable with, it might not always be everybody's getting handoffs and rushing the football. He's going to involve you in the passing game. He's going to make sure you're getting touches. And certainly we saw that with Corbin and Ward and Toafili, not to mention Jordan Travis and what he can already do with his legs. So there are so many different extensions of the running game for a Norvell-led offensive attack. So all those guys are going to get used. I think we all expect Ward and Benson and Toafili to carry the lion's share. But also, like Pat said, I think too, Duquesne's going to be I don't want to say it's an audition, but you're going to kind of see who thrives in that situation and maybe earns a couple more carries too.
Well, yeah, you got to hope that especially on this 2 deep, that you get a lot of snaps from all these guys on the 2 deep in this first game. I mean, at the end of the day, the reality of is as we've talked about in our meetings prior to this, is you really want this to be a game that everybody on the bench gets a chance to play, right? So, but yes, you certainly can use this game as another marker for who's doing well and who needs got some more room for improvement. And but yes, listen, there's going to be, as Mike has talked about, competition will continue throughout the course of practices, and guys will continue to develop, especially the younger ones will continue to get better as the season goes on. So that competition never dies.
So an interesting thing for me when I look at this is it seems like the receivers, there's no set roles per se. For instance, I would have thought when I saw Micah Pittman as a starter that may be in the slot, but when his backup's Kentron Portier, I'm like, no, that's not he's not a slot receiver. So it seems like, and we've obviously seen Norvell uses his guys in a lot of different ways, moves them around, maybe don't always have sure slots. And that definitely seems like the case with this early receiver. It seems like receiver with, 2 oars. That's a lot of the oars on the whole roster, really, especially among starters. That definitely seems like I want to see who stands out in a game position.
Yeah, and Curt, I wonder if that has to do with personnel packages. You're right. Keyshawn Helton has a little bit more of that slot build to him. A smaller guy, shiftier guy that can kind of navigate in the middle of the field a little bit more conspicuously, for lack of a better term. So I was a little bit surprised to see him not in that second slot position. I think maybe that's like, so there's 13 positions listed on offense. Some of that's package driven, right? So, but yes, that one did surprise me because I saw these 3 guys at the slot position, and Kentron Portier was not one of them when we entered the season. So I was a little bit surprised at that. So we'll see how that, at the end of the day, we'll see where these guys line up in these personnel packages. And I would still think you'll see a lot of Keyshawn Helton in that slot position as the season moves on.
Guys, I want to ask you both of you, can you give me a name or 2 that did not appear on the 2 deep that you feel like Seminole fans will hear from very quickly in the season? Who are your picks for guys who will either enter the 2 deep or will get the most playing time from the guys not listed on the 2 deep?
Well, as I've already mentioned one of them on defense. I think Sidney Williams. I mean, he's a kid that I was impressed with very early on. So on defense for me, that would probably be the guy. I think it's a little bit harder on offense, to be quite honest with you. If I had, a guy that we saw a lot of, got a lot of reps with the first and second team during camp, and probably more so, obviously, the second team, but Kanai Charlton. He's a guy that was impressive, a lot more impressive than I thought he would be. He had been running second team up until they moved Turnentine to right guard. We'd seen him run second team left guard at times. I was kind of now some of that could have been because who was and what was and who was not participating in practice on any given day, but certainly that would be a guy that would stand out in my mind.
A name I may throw in there. I mean, it's tough because that's a really deep room, but just because it's pretty hard when you look at the offense, I'd be interested to see how Josh Burrell fits in there with how his work at running back later in camp. He was getting some first team reps towards the end of camp. I think just to kind of see what he was made of. And I think it seems like they're going to use him kind of in that Ja'Kai Douglas role, a little bit of running back, a little bit of wide receiver, line him up all over the place. So it would probably take an injury for him to see extensive playing time, but I feel like is a guy who could carve out a role after missing last year as the season goes on.
Yes, and I noticed that they changed him to an athlete as far as his position. Also, we're about if he's good at both those, if he can still play wide receiver and running back and split them 50-50, he may get called just a football player like the guy from Virginia. You know what they have the guy at Virginia's listed as? He's just a football player.
Who plays like quarterback, but also tight end or wide receiver. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yes, that's actually, Curt, I hadn't thought about that one. That's a good pick. Who do you got on defense?
Who do I have on defense? Maybe an Omar Graham. I mean, the linebacker, he might be your fifth linebacker. It's probably him or Steven Dix, I would say. And then
I think you're definitely right about that. Those are the next two suspects for sure.
Omar Graham's impressed. I mean, for a guy who you didn't know about, and I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt with Omar Graham. I mean, it's great that you're getting stuff from him. It definitely doesn't hurt that he's also got a little bit of a connection to Hakeem Williams.
Yeah. Well, that's
right. That may not count the too deep, but that definitely counts for something.
Follow the breadcrumbs. You're right. Who surprised you the most on as far as being on the too deep on each side of the ball, Curt?
What I'll say is I'll throw Julian Armella in there, especially, I mean, being a true freshman who's your backup left tackle. I will say with that, the caveat is I'm not sure he would actually become the starting left tackle if Robert Scott went down. I wonder if they wouldn't maybe move Turnentine there or explore other options just out of not wanting to play a true freshman there. But I mean, that speaks to the preseason camp he had. I mean, he didn't get here till this summer, and he is in the two deep at probably the most important offensive line position.
Well, and I have the same question on Armella, but another direction. Let's say Bless Harris goes down. Does Julian move over to the right side above Lloyd? So, So I think Julian Armella is going to play football for Florida State this year, and I think he's a guy that could really could play anywhere. If he decided he was going to play guard, he could play guard. I think the future is very bright for him. But yes, does he end up the left tackle, or do you move him, Bless Harris over there, then kick Julian out to the right? I think that. But that could certainly be something that happens. What about on defense? Who'd you have on defense as a surprise on the two deep?
I'll be honest, coming into, I guess, his last year now, his second year at FSU, I'd kind of counted out Jarclez McClellion. And I mean, he deserves to be on this two deep from what we've seen this preseason. But coming into the year, I kind of thought that you might see a Travis J in that spot, even though Travis J's kind of struggled with his on-field moments. That's an interesting name to me where, like I said, it's warranted because he's had a pretty good preseason after transferring over now 2 years ago from Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was mine. When I went down through it, I was like, all right, well, why am I not seeing Shaheem? Not Shaheem Brown. Why am I not seeing Sidney Williams there?
Sydney, yeah.
That's who I had projected as being the second safety. So I was a little bit surprised there. As you said, it was warranted. He's had a good camp. So, but yeah, it's finally here. We finally get to go over a depth chart and can talk about some more of what we've seen from these guys over the course of the last month, and start talking about some things that we have not been able to talk about in the past. So give a little bit more background on what we've seen.
5 days.
Yes.
They're going to be long days. Probably, let's be real, but 5 days. It feels nice to be able to count them on one hand.
Shoot, I can't believe we're 30 days into the Rivals thing already. I mean,
that is true too.
Well, actually, we're only 22. It seems like we should be 30 days. It's been a very busy, very, very busy month. So, but yeah, listen, we've been waiting for this. We filmed that Seminole Sidelines last night, Ari, and there were certain things that we wanted to say and we couldn't. Now, because of the depth chart, we can. And listen, I would ask you this, each of you. Compared to the last 4 season opening depth charts, how do you rank this one against those? Is it even close?
I mean, yeah, the top end of it is much better. They still need to build a little more depth. There's no doubt about that. The fact that, the offensive line's come a long way, but the fact that your state of your tackle room is where you need a true freshman to be a backup is not great. But no, the top end talent and just what they've done is undeniably impressive. It sets up as, it's a hard schedule, but it sets up as a team that looks much better equipped to handle that schedule.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, I think just, Pat, when you go back and look at what they've done in the transfer portal, just to go out and get guys that they feel not just can play, but fits their culture, that's allowed their depth chart, I think, to take steps forward. And even a guy like Feaster, coming in from Jacksonville State and as he gets comfortable at Florida State and being in the system and a part of the program, how does he progress in this depth chart? Does he make it to a 2 deep eventually? Because he was a very solid FCS starting corner last season. And we've seen Bless Harris and Jared Verse. Just because you're in the FCS doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have a spot here. They went out and got you, but
there's certainly good guys at FCF guys that develop into FBS type players as they get into college, and Malik has a lot of experience, as you mentioned. And would it shock me to see him on the 2 deep at some point this season with that experience? Nope, it would not at all. And as we see, some guys are not working out the way we thought they would.
Right.
And that'll give him an opportunity to do something like that. But I got to ask you, if you could pick one position on the 2 deep that has your biggest concern? I'm talking about just from a depth standpoint. What would it be, guys?
Still think mine's linebacker. Still, just in terms of who you can rely on. I think
you feel really good about that top 4, and there are real questions beyond that top 4.
In terms of the depth, if you're asking me, one guy goes down there, Pat, and now you're talking about the talent level drops in terms of playable talent, in terms of not guys who are just have upside, but guys who have the combination of upside and have experience. I would be a little more hesitant and nervous if that was to happen with the linebacker.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I could not, as I go through this, I look at the defensive line, I'm like, yeah, man, they could be pretty good. Then the linebackers are listed next, and I'm like, boy, they got to stay healthy. Anyway, I'm with you there.
Let me ask you guys both this, and then Pat, we'll wrap with you here on First and Nole. Something Adam Fuller said that I really liked was that if you're a good true freshman, you're going to get on the field. If you have shown us that you can play, it doesn't really matter what your age is, we're going to put you out there. And you guys mentioned a Thomas and a McCall. How quickly do you guys anticipate those guys getting that playing time that Coach Fuller talks about? Is that obviously against Duquesne, you're hoping that there's going to be extended run for some of those guys. But beyond that, how do you project the freshmen making impacts at Florida State?
Well, listen, go ahead, Curt.
I think, a lot of it hinges on what they do with that playing time. And Kevin Knowles got playing time early last year and sure made the most of it and really locked down that nickel spot. And had it all offseason without doubt. Duke Cooper took a little longer, but then he got in there and was a kind of a huge stabilizing force for FSU down the stretch of last season. We've seen a lot from both those guys, but I don't know. I'll be interested to see. I mean, how they handle that Duquesne. Even then, how do they handle if they get in against LSU? I think we'll go a long way towards determining that.
Yeah, well, and listen, you've always heard, at least I have, that the further you are away from the ball, the easier it is to play early, right? Because the transition, in some regards, is particularly from a physicality standpoint, it's not as great as it is if you're in the interior of the line. And plus, as the big boys tend to need to get stronger as they get here. But listen, there are freshmen every year, everywhere that play. Now it's the exception, not the rule. And listen, you're going to find yourself, Greedy Vance, I believe he started as a freshman at Louisville. So, and Julian Armella is going to play this year. And, listen, I think it's going to be interesting. There will be some internal competition between Thomas and McCall at that corner spot behind Cooper, because there's only so many reps in practice. You only get 20 hours a week. That includes meetings. So, how can you theoretically get 6 corners ready for a game? So some of that's going to take care of itself. And then, listen, there could be a time, where if it's really equal, maybe you keep 3 guys at corner and try to play 3 guys at a single corner position. But yeah, I think some of that will take care of itself. But yes, I expect both of them to play, and but there will be an internal competition particularly at that position. But I do think we're going to see some true freshmen play this year.
Well, fellas, good conversation there on the depth chart. Pat, appreciate you joining us, and I look forward to your coverage. I'm sure you're excited to finally get to analyze a game here in just a couple of days.
Yes, because we can talk about everything we see. Yes, so I am ready for the game. And listen, I love college football. It's my favorite time of the year. I mean, this 12-week season will go by so quickly, and it'll be January before we know it, and either getting over coming back from a bowl game or waiting for the next year to start. Either way, it'll be 8 long months after January. And I'm excited. I'm excited about this Florida State football team. I think, as I said yesterday, this is about as much anticipation as I can sense being around the program, at least probably since the Virginia Tech game, I guess. Willie's first, there was a lot of anticipation going into that 2018 opener, 2017 opener. So listen, I'm looking forward to it. Glad you guys are going to be along for the ride, and I look forward to being a guest on First and Noles again. And you guys have a great afternoon.
We appreciate you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, guys.
Thanks to Pat for being able to join us here on this podcast, First and Nole, and we'll continue to have guests as this podcast continues to evolve. And all right, Curt, so depth chart, we spent a good amount of time on it. Is there a position that you're most excited to see evolve as the season goes along?
I'm excited to see who really emerges at wide receiver. I think there are a lot of options there, and we weren't sure that would be the case. There was definitely cause for concern, and there still is to a point, because I think we've talked about you don't have that proven number one guy. But interested to see, I mean, does Johnny Wilson carry over what's been a really good preseason? Is Deuce Spann really ready to play now, which he looks like he has this preseason, which I would have never guessed from how he looked in the spring? I just think that's a really, and I mean, I definitely wouldn't have thought I would have picked wide receiver as like the most excited to see, but I am, because I think what a true passing offense for really the first time in Mike Norvell's tenure here, what that can do for a run game that's already had success could really break the offense wide open.
Yeah, and I'm excited also to see the defensive backs kind of get out there. It's so loaded. So many guys that can play, and Shaheem Brown just keeps flashing in practice, and he's there on the 2 deep, and Florida State has bona fide stars, right, in Dent and Robinson already, and I'm excited to see corner too. I mean, is Renardo Green going to be able to hold on to that spot there at corner? He's spent some time playing safety. He's played some corner. How does Florida State utilize him? The freshman that we mentioned in that segment with Pat, how quickly does a McCall or a Thomas be able to kind of assert themselves? And we heard some good things about Demore Tate too. Is this the season we see him get on the field at some point and kind of make an impact, or at least show us flashes of the future for Demore Tate? I am looking forward to seeing how this depth chart evolves throughout the season, because as we know from covering teams in the past, they change. depth charts are made to change, and you just kind of hope for the best injury luck you can possibly have, because there's no doubt about it that in college football in this day and age, and really always, injuries play a major factor. The season for Florida State, Curt, I think, constituting a success for a lot of fans right now. They're wondering, is FSU going to make a bowl game? Can they win 7? Can they win 8? You've got people that are really feeling themselves and projecting 9. I thought it'd be a good exercise for us to kind of go through this schedule and kind of break down these teams and maybe give our own season predictions here at the end.
Yeah, for sure. It's obviously, like we talked about, there's definitely the belief that this can start out or should start out. I mean, we all remember last year, Duquesne is not Jacksonville State. We need to start there. Like, no offense to Duquesne, but Jacksonville State's an FCS team that regularly goes to the playoffs. That
I will say, Jacksonville State, I think, finished like 3-9 last year.
So their coach got fired. Yes, that was not. I'm not. But it is a program that has talent, and who knows what happened there. I mean, they did. But all of that to say, I think Mike Norvell learned some valuable, and the coaching staff, and probably the players learned some valuable lessons in that game. I definitely think there was a sense of them thinking, well, we can just mess around a bit. We're not going to lose this game.
I think the order in which the priorities took place, I think Florida State, and as you should in games against FCS opponents, by the way, you are paying the school to come play you. So, generally speaking, you're treating that not like a glorified scrimmage, but you want to be able to kind of use that as a catapult for the rest of your season. FSU seemed to be working on things that they wanted to implement later in the year. And I don't want to say it's disrespect to Jacksonville State, but I think there was a slight bit of, okay, well, if it's not working out, we can still continue to kind of tinker and toy with stuff, and maybe in the fourth quarter we'll be able to pull away. It shouldn't be a big deal in the grand scheme. And then all of a sudden, you looked up and Jacksonville State was still within 2 scores. Then you looked up and Jacksonville State was within 1 score. And by that point, I don't really care what level of football you're playing. If you're in the fourth quarter, you believe that your team has done enough to warrant the fight to kind of finish. So you're right. They learned valuable lessons. I expect them to come out against Duquesne, Curt, and pound the rock, pound the ball, build a big lead, and then kind of earn the right to play other players and work on other fundamental things for your program.
I think the game should there shouldn't be any doubt about the result by halftime. I think it should be a comfortable win. I think you should get that. And I think, like we talked about for the first time since 2016, you're going to be looking at a 1-0 Florida State team.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think Duquesne, we both agree. Look, if you lose that game, I don't know if I want to do this podcast the next Monday. I mean, you laugh, but trust me. I mean, that is not a level. I join all of my Florida State brethren in the depression category if we lose to Duquesne. I just can't even.
If we lose to Duquesne, the rest of this conversation doesn't matter.
Yeah, I might just quit.
That was bad
media.
of me. Yes, I'm a Florida State grad. I like to think I separate the two very well. If Florida State loses to Duquesne, then I mean, the rest of this doesn't matter. But again, would neither of us expect that.
Right. I feel like win percentage is 99.99.
Yeah.
You should be okay. All right. So the one that you guys all want to hear about, the LSU game, our thoughts on the Tigers in Baton Rouge in the Superdome. You told me it was Caesar's Palace now, right?
Yeah, it's Caesar's Superdome.
Caesar's Palace. Does the real Caesar live here?
Well, see,
what is that movie?
It is that.
That's what I thought of. Caesar's. Is it Caesar's the betting or Caesar's the pizza?
That's Little Caesars. It's Caesar's Sportsbook, which is like the people who own Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
I think most of our listeners are like, I think Aria's IQ is like 0.
No, it's not Little Caesar. I think that's the arena in Detroit.
Oh, that's in Detroit. Okay.
But no, newly named. But I mean, this is a game that it's a chance to Florida State to kind of have its like, is Florida State back moment if they're able to go into basically a road game in New Orleans and win.
Yeah, and I think it's a big one for Florida State, obviously, for national prominence reasons. We did our outlook, and Curt, we asked all of our staff members, give me the game that you think is most important on your schedule. And a lot of us went with Louisville. I went with LSU, and my reasoning was I think Louisville is a very important game. But I think it's also not any more important than the other ACC games on your schedule because of what they all mean for, the season. I argued LSU for me it's a game in which national prominence is on the line. You know, you've got an LSU team that is going to be beatable in year one under Brian Kelly. They're playing their first game. You've already played a game, and hopefully you've worked on things and have shook off the rust a little bit to allow you to have a faster start against LSU, but also for recruiting. Mike Norvell really needs to build the stability and the floor for this recruiting for this program in terms of recruiting. And it's not about 2023s, and it's probably not even about 2024s. It's about laying the foundation that Florida State is on the climb back to kids who are 14 years old right now, 15 years old, 16 years old, and they're going to be coming up here making decisions in a couple of years. This is where you start your climb, and I think it's beating a team like LSU, which, by the way, they are also going after recruits of 2023 that you're going after. So it's a big game, I think, for a lot of reasons, but also because of the national landscape. That's a brand name that moves the needle, the LSU Tigers. You're going to be the only team really playing Sunday night that late. It's huge. I think it's everything to this program right now.
Are you picking a win for the Florida State family?
Family. Yeah, I can't believe what was he thinking? And then the dance move that pops up on Twitter.
He is a heck of a coach, and he just seems like a head scratcher of a person.
He's the last person on earth that I would have thought would be trying to, whatever he was wiggling with the freaking recruit. What was that? I mean, if you're a recruit, didn't you decide, you cut LSU out of your top five immediately?
That quarterback, the first one he did that with, committed. He
felt bad. He's going to decommit later.
He's enrolled, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh, that worked.
I think they were already leading for him. I think that visit was more a customary type thing. But
I don't know what's more cringe, him dancing or Dabo dancing. I think it's equal parts annoying to watch. But to answer your question, yeah, I've got the Noles beating LSU. I just think a lot of factors play to the Seminoles' advantage, namely having a game you've already been able to play, starting camp a week earlier, a lot more guys coming back that I think will be more comfortable with what Norvell wants to do rather than LSU and what Brian Kelly wants to do. They're a talented team. I'm not sitting here and telling you Florida State's got a 70% win probability. I think I might be going with my heart here a little bit, but I do think the Seminoles will pull this one out in New Orleans.
Give me a win, too.
You got it?
Give me a win on this one. I think a huge factor. Yes, there are questions about Florida State's offensive line, even though you feel better about it. LSU is starting 5 new offensive linemen.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And that's not going to be an easy kids too.
And that's not going to be an easy. Yeah, they're starting a true freshman at left tackle, just like Notre Dame did last year.
Have fun with that.
And I mean, I just think the defensive line, from what we've seen, is going to have an impact. And I think that is a tough task for LSU, a new offensive line at LSU.
I don't also buy Jaden Daniels that much. I think
LSU fans would have you believe that it was about the talent surrounding him, but
okay.
I mean,
we'll see, won't we?
I think it'll be a great game. But
the Nussmeier kid could beat him out.
Give me FSU.
There's a chance. So
we both 2-0.
Yeah, I think so. Then the Noles get the off week. They get a bye, right?
They're winning that.
Yeah. And then they go to Louisville. Not a place that has historically been friendly to Florida State. Malik Cunningham's a really good player over there. This is a big year for Satterfield, I think, up there at KFC Stadium. And what is it, Papa John's? KFC's the basketball, or are they not allowed to be Papa John's anymore
It's
either?
just Cardinal Stadium.
they dropped that sponsorship.
Yeah. Isn't he a Kentucky fan now? I think Papa John's is a Kentucky fan because Louisville dropped him.
Well, anyway, you'll play in Louisville, Kentucky, in the Bluegrass State. I could see Florida State winning this one. I think having a bye week is massive. And I think it allows, if you win the game against LSU, I think it allows a week to reset from the emotions of it. I think that could be good. And if you lose, I think it's good for you guys to be able to, it allows the Noles to kind of remove themselves from the sting of a loss, I think, after about a week. So I could see Florida State winning. I still struggle to pick that as a win because Friday night at 7 o'clock, I'm snake bit a little bit on the way FSU has played. Some of these odd days on the road in the ACC in a place that the Noles have historically not been very good. I will say Louisville in this one.
Agreed. I'm on the same page. I was on the same page before you said that. It's funny that we're
all the same reasoning.
Exactly.
A lot of the same reasons, or you have your own reasons?
I think. I mean, he lost a few skill players around him, but I think Malik Cunningham may still be underrated just in how good he is. I mean, he has really willed that Louisville team to some impressive wins. I worry a bit, especially if this team's 2-0 like we think. I mean, this will be a real test of like not being like, oh, that we're back. You know, like this will be a test for, because if that team's 3-0, they're probably ranked. Florida State.
For
they're
sure.
3-0 with wins over LSU and at Louisville. I think that's probably ranked for the first time in a minute. And I worry if they're not quite ready for that. And it's not to say that Louisville wouldn't just beat them. I think it might be more about just I think Louisville's really good.
Yeah. So we're on the same page there. So 2-1 after 3 games. I do think, I will say this, guys who are listening, folks, if FSU loses to LSU, I think they're going to beat Louisville. I do think the Nole split those 2 games. Genuinely. So
that Louisville game, I mean, what I will say is I like the case you made for the LSU game being more important, but if they lose the LSU game, the Louisville game is the most important game since.
It's been a while.
Not being 1-2, with how backloaded, like with how what's left on the schedule. I mean, that will be a tough.
You haven't been able to build momentum early in a season under Norvell for a couple years. This is big, right? Early momentum and early success.
And I'm not really a believer in momentum carrying over from year to year, but people want to believe, like with how strong they finished last year, even with the Florida game, that they'll be able to carry that over. And any chance of that is gone if Florida State's 1-2.
All right, moving on. Boston College back in the friendly confines of Doak Campbell Stadium. I will go win against Boston College. FSU has matched up well with BC the last couple of years. They've done well in Tallahassee against BC the last few years. I know we've all remembered the losses on the days we wore black jerseys and, mid-2000s we're losing to Boston College and Mark Herzlich and Luke Kuechly and those days. I think Jerkovich is a really good quarterback. I think that kid's going to play in the NFL for Boston College. I think he's really good, and I like their coach, by the way. I think
I'm a little surprised he's still there, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I like the way they play. I think they have been a bit unlucky in the past. I do think, though, that FSU at home will be able to take care of business.
I agree. I mean, you look at last year, that game probably shouldn't have been as close as it was, if not for some pretty questionable calls, and that was at Boston College. I think Florida State, give me a win there, so I think we're both on the same page, 3-1.
All right, Wake Forest the following week, also in Tallahassee. Florida State 2 games in a row at home there in end of September, early October range. So obviously the big news with Wake, Curt, has been that Sam Hartman has a undisclosed condition that it's non-football related.
Yeah, something non-football that's keeping him off the field.
Right, we can't speculate. I think all of us have our thoughts on what it might be. Either way, Hartman, his availability for this game, and I think the form that he's in, so to speak, game fitness, match fitness, so to speak, we use a soccer term. And I mean, it does matter. I mean, a guy he's probably not even allowed to take many reps right now. So when he does get back, how many reps can he take? Is that before Florida State? Is that after the Florida State game? It makes all the difference. I'm a big believer, by the way, Curt, in coach at Wake Forest and Clausen. I think A.T. Perry at receiver is phenomenal. They do return a bunch of guys on defense. Not a great defense, but it is a ton of guys coming back, which you would tend to believe means they will improve on that side of the ball because of it. Wake and Tallahassee, though, I mean, if it was at Wake, I'd probably pick Wake, even if Hartman plays or doesn't play. In Tallahassee, I think Florida State finds a way in a close game, regardless of if Hartman is playing. I think the Noles win this one.
See, you talked about swinging the home away. I think it swings on Hartman to Hartman. I think if he's not back, and I'm not basing it off any inside intel I have, I just don't think if he's still out and no timetable for return's been announced, and the game's in a little over a month, about 5 weeks. I think that I don't see him being available, and if he's not available, like we saw what A.T. Perry did to FSU last year, but is the quarterback able to give him the ball consistently? And it also bears mentioning that was probably the low point of non-Jacksonville State, the low point of the season for Florida State last year. That defense in that game was not the defense by the end of the year. So if you believe that all that will carry over, then you even if it were Hartman, you would have faith in that Florida State defense doing a better job at just not allowing big play after big play.
All right, so let's move forward. So you've got you do have it
On
as
the
a
same
win
page, we're both 4-1.
as of today.
4-1 Florida State.
Unfortunately, after you win a bunch of games in 5, I think some losses are on the table. I think FSU's still a year away from truly winning 9 or 10 games. At NC State's been a place that even if FSU has been strong, historically has been a tough challenge. Carter
Forget
Finley,
2012.
yeah, I don't want to even remember it. I'm going to go with loss against NC State at Carter Finley, especially because I really do like that NC State team too. I think Leary's a phenomenal quarterback. Their defense is outstanding, and I think they've got some momentum here with some older guys that are back. It's a veteran team that last season I think gave them some confidence in who they could become, but I think they want more. I think they're hungry to try and win the Atlantic Division, to be able to play for an ACC championship in Charlotte in front of so many of their fans in the state of Carolina. And I just think NC State's had Florida State's number the last couple years. So I'm going to go with the Wolfpack. Dave Doran hands Florida State their second loss of the year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Notre Dame, NC State fans will probably curse at me for if knowing I said this. I think they might win the Atlantic. Like, I am of the opinion, and we'll get to Clemson next. But no, I mean, I'm of the opinion that NC State team is going to be very good. And I know the NC State stuff, fill in the word, that is a thing within that fan base, but there is no reason that, I mean, yeah, I think NC State wins that one. That one, it's possible that's the most lopsided loss of the season. I will jump it ahead. I also see a loss the following week at home against Clemson. I think, that is a tough 2-game stretch. I mean, that is definitely, I would say, your toughest 2-game stretch of the season. There are questions about Clemson. Who's the quarterback at that point? I mean, I think the problem is playing them later in the season. If DJ is still struggling with the same stuff he was last year, it's entirely possible it's Cade Klubnik's team at that point, and they moved on from Uiagalelei. And if that's the case, I mean, there's a lot of positive buzz I know about Cade Klubnik, who is a highly rated quarterback out of Texas, who is a true freshman. So,
and Dabo has shown historically that he will pull the trigger on making the switch early in a year if he has to.
Is it?
He's done it.
He did it with Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence. You're right,
and he did it with Deshaun Watson and Cole Stout.
Oh yeah,
not against Florida State for a drive, remember?
Oof.
Which helped FSU win that game because I think Watson came in and all of us were wondering why that kid wasn't playing earlier. But again, they made that switch later and it proved to work out.
There is absolutely a world where Clemson is struggling and this is a game that Florida State can win. But I'm just not sure I see things going that bad for Clemson. I mean, this is a fascinating year for Clemson with new coordinators all around. Dabo promoted internally and really bet on himself and his culture. And it'll be interesting to see. But just sheer talent alone, I just don't see Florida State there yet. I think they're still a year away.
Yeah, as of August 22nd, these are our picks. We have every right to adapt. I've got Clemson as a loss as well. It's just a prove-it game to me. Until you do beat them, to me, it's hard to pick it until you see it with your eyes. So I will go loss as well there.
So 4-3.
The Clemson Tigers, yeah. Bye week coming after that, I think it comes at an amazing time. You know, right after you play Wake, NC State, Clemson, and I guess Boston College, Wake, NC State, Clemson. That is a brutal stretch. Oh, my gosh. That's tough. But the bye week comes at a good time. And then you get Georgia Tech, who, for whatever reason, Florida State just, whether we're good, whether we're bad, why do we struggle against the Yellow Jackets? It's so frustrating. I hope and I pray that this is the year we make an example out of them in Doak Campbell Stadium. And I mean, Jeff Collins, the seat's starting to get warm over there in Atlanta.
There's a non-zero chance that Jeff Collins is no longer the coach at Georgia Tech by this point. October 29th is pretty far into the season.
Maybe.
I'm not predicting that per se, but there's absolutely a world. I mean, this is definitely his year, even more than Mike Norvell. Like, Mike Norvell probably doesn't even have the first or second hottest seat because things would have to go really bad for this to be it for Mike Norvell. But Jeff Collins is probably far and away, I would say, the hottest ACC seat. And I wonder if Mike Norvell, like you talked about, want to make an example out of him. I wonder if that 2020 game isn't sticking in his craw a little bit and his debut getting kind of ruined a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game that when you look at the schedule and you're breaking down must-haves, winnable, 50-50, doubtful, likely loss, right?
That's your must-have.
Yeah, it's a must-have. I don't. They're not.
Yep.
They're not Duquesne.
Yep.
But in terms of on your ACC slate, the Georgia Tech, Syracuse, that elk,
Yep.
you got to win those games. At home.
So 5-3.
Yeah, pretty good so far for Florida State.
I mean,
and I think the month of November is going to prove to be make it or break it month for FSU. So then you go to Miami in Hard Rock Stadium against the Hurricanes. New head coach Mario Cristobal. You just beat them in Tallahassee the year before. You wouldn't know it if you looked at their fan base's Twitter. That they had just lost to FSU.
No. They're glad that happened.
Right.
Didn't you, Ariya? Come on.
That didn't even happen for some of them. I mean, it was like almost like it doesn't count. All right, Curt, I'll start with you. You make your pick.
Give me Miami in this one. I think the thing is, like we said, that's far enough down the season. Who knows what that team resembles? Mario Cristobal has proven to be quite a recruiter. He's also proven to have kind of some head-scratching losses each and every year. I mean, that team, for whatever reason, as talented as that Oregon team was, just couldn't seem to beat Utah last year. I mean, they lost to them twice, pretty embarrassingly both times. Is there a world where Florida State is up for that game, where Florida State is trying to get to a bowl and do it against a rival or qualify for a bowl or whatever? And who knows? But I just think, there are real questions about that Miami team. I think those receiver room is somewhat questionable. I think there are parts of the defense that are somewhat questionable. But I think Tyler Van Dyke is, for as much as I think we think Jordan Travis is going to grow, I think he is just a step above if he's anything close to what we saw last year.
Yeah, isn't it funny how you go into a season for Miami, Curt, and the defense has more question marks than the offense? It seems like the last few years you've been like, all right, we know what Miami's defense is going to be. Their front four is going to be disgusting. Their offense, we'll find out. I think this year the roles have reversed, and it's more, well, you know what you have at quarterback. You have TVD. Your receiving room is solid. Your offensive line has some pieces, and your running backs are studs. They have a loaded running back corps. This is a swing game for me. I've gone back and forth on it many times. I think Florida State wins, though, man. I think people. It's a similar team to what they had last year, right? A coach makes a difference. I agree, 100%. Cristobal should be, but how much of an effect does Cristobal make in year one in Miami? We'll find out. And like you said, they've had games where they've gotten beat. Cristobal, especially at Oregon, Utah just pounded them twice. And that starts to beg questions of toughness, of grit. Can they play hard-nosed football? Tyler Van Dyke played against Florida State last year, man, and he was good, and FSU withstood it. So Hard Rock has traditionally not been the hardest place to play for Florida State. This is the last time they were down there, Norvell didn't coach, correct?
Yes, he had the 52-10 COVID game.
I got Florida State. Maybe it's a gut feel. Most of these games anyway, with the exception of a few, are not blowouts. They come down to that fourth quarter.
That is true. Could we have another 4th and 14?
And I really trust this Florida State team this year in close games. I think they're going to pull out a lot more close games. So
that's step 3 on Bobby Bowden's. Bobby Bowden's. It's lose big, lose close. This is the win close year, if you will. It's interesting. You look at Miami's schedule, especially their home schedule. This will probably be their big recruiting weekend. This and Pittsburgh are the two big home games. So
you can call me a homer if you want. I just have a gut feel. It is a gut feel. I think it's a memorable classic type game.
Here's what I'll say.
It's just I got the Noles.
I think Miami's going to be good. TVD helps that. I think there are some real questions at receiver.
It's a decent group.
I think
FSU
Charleston Rambo is not just what he did is not going to be just easy to replace.
I agree. Do you think Florida State has a better receiving corps?
No.
You do not.
It's hard for me to say that right now. I don't know. They're probably about the same, if I'm being honest. Okay. I don't know.
So yeah, we're gonna find out. So you got it as a loss.
Yeah.
I've got it as a win. I think that's where we separate.
You're 6-3. You're bowl eligible. I'm 5-4.
Here we go. Syracuse in Tallahassee. I don't want to talk about this too much.
I'm only a week behind you on bowl eligibility.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Cuse, Noles win. I hope they win big. PJ Tucker's really good.
Yeah.
And I think, I think Syracuse can run the football. I don't think they're going to be a very good team.
Maybe Garrett Schrader doesn't run for like 150 yards or how much he ran for like he did in last year.
And even if he does, he can't throw a football for 300. I mean, it's just Noles. That's one of your easier FBS games.
Yes, it's that and Georgia Tech are your ACC ones that you're really circling
must-haves
in permanent.
Yeah.
Like
I got to be able to count on some wins if we're going to get to 7 or 8 wins. Louisiana post Billy Napier the following week. That's a tricky one because you play Florida on short prep right after it on Thanksgiving Friday. I'll take Florida State. I think it's a closer than the experts and the line has it type of game. Louisiana was really impressive last year. Again, though, they lose some pieces and Napier's gone. I've got Florida State at home.
Agreed. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what these teams look like, what that line of the game is. Napier built it up, and some of those kids stick around, but I know he took a couple of the kids with him to Gainesville, and obviously lose a coach like that, it makes a difference. So I agree. I give me Florida State somewhat comfortable, maybe not a full-on blowout, but not one they're sweating out into the final minutes.
Curt, I'm trusting you to keep our tallies. What are we at?
So are you at 8 wins? You're at 8-3, and I'm at 7-4.
Which comes down to the Florida Gators in Tallahassee. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I'm gonna say it's a loss.
Me too.
I feel. Here's the thing.
It's one of those gut feels. I think they split between Miami and Florida. So if they beat Miami, I see them losing to Florida, and if they lose to Miami, I could see this Florida game.
I don't think this Florida team is that good. I think Anthony Richardson has potential. I think it will be interesting to see how he handles being the guy, because he wasn't last year, and he didn't always handle it well. I mean, obviously, Billy Napier's under some pressure right away, already having to put out the open letter, and obviously they've been doing pretty well in recruiting since that letter came out. But it'll be interesting. I don't know, but yeah, I think I'd be interested to see if that Black Friday spot becomes like an annual thing or not. I kind of don't mind it personally. So I can understand why fans may not be the biggest fans.
Is that the old Texas A&M Friday spot?
Is that when they played?
It used to be Texas A&M on the Friday, or was it
the
a
Egg
Thursday?
Bowl that night, or is the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night? I think the Egg Bowl's Thanksgiving night on like a Thursday night.
Yeah, it's one or the other. It used to be Texas and Texas A&M played on Thursday or Friday, and the Egg Bowl was sandwiched around that.
I don't hate it because personally,
all eyes on you on Black Friday,
and a Saturday for me to watch Rivalry Saturday.
Yeah.
But it's a big one. I mean, that is I don't think either.
What time is that? 7:30 at Doak. Woo! Wow.
Both of us think they will have a bowl locked up by then. It would be nice for that team if that wasn't on the line again. If that was on the line again, they got bigger problems. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be a good game. And I think most fans will be okay with 7-5. It'd be 2 more wins improvement, which is my projected record. I think it might bother them that they have them losing to both the in-state rivals and Clemson, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You went 8-4.
Yeah, I went 8-4. Look, if Florida State goes 9-3 under Norvell, I think the nation has been put on notice.
100%.
Yeah.
I also think I talked about this on our message board the other day. 9-3 would be like everything has to go right. Good injury luck, maybe some injury luck for other teams working in your favor.
Well, if everything goes right, you go 12-0. That's what everything going right means. But I see your point.
I think 9-3 is just about best case scenario. Like I've seen some people say they think 10 can happen.
I don't see that this season.
That, no.
Yeah, I mean maybe if Lyles and Smith were healthy and
I think Smith should be at some point.
Yeah, unless your defense comes out. And again, we're just projecting, folks. Like that's what's fun about some of these seasons is you looked around college football and there have been teams in the past that people don't have a lot of hope for. They say, 7-5. Yeah. All of a sudden they're 8-4, 9-3. The defense would have to probably be a level above what we think it's going to be, which we already project it to be pretty good. And Jordan Travis will have had to take that jump that I know I've been hyping him up a bunch, but it would be a level surpassing that. And maybe somebody in the receiving room, I think, would have to turn into a legitimate superstar, right? Like there needs to be certain things here and there that happen.
Johnny Wilson needs to be a 1,000-yard receiver. Trey Benson may need to be a 1,000-yard rusher. Like
things have to happen.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
7-5 is what you got?
I do.
I'm at 8-4. That lines up with what we went with in our season outlook article that is on Osceola right now, floridastate.rivals.com. All right. Well, Curt, I don't have anything else. I think, if Florida State fans would take going into bowl season with an potential eighth win or a potential ninth win. And that, I think, is going to help Florida State recruit at a high level. I really believe that recruits and their families are waiting to see a sign of life that they can take Florida State to the next level, right? Like they can trust that it's moving in the right direction. So, Curt, we want to thank Pat Burnham for joining us here, breaking down the depth chart. There's a season outlook for us, projections pick by pick, and we're going to be back next week, hopefully with some more guests and
a game to recap.
Talking about Duquesne. How about it, huh?
And looking ahead to Nola. We're both going.
Yeah. On Spotify, on Apple Pods, and on YouTube. Please be sure to rate us 5 stars. Share this podcast with your friends, First and Nole, and we will talk to you soon.